because it is so far out of touch with what is actually available. Spending unit for the 1983 to 1984 fiscal year. The Commission has been doing this and have come to a conclusion which is supported
to 29%. Now, we're trying to do everything that we possibly can.
When you find out what to do with it.
Okay.
Because of the girl's age, she's referred to in the suit as Jane Doe. She claims she was subjected to a vacuum aspiration abortion procedure at Montgomery Women's Medical Clinic by mistake. The suit charges Miss Doe underwent the procedure that should have been performed on another woman with the same first name who was at the clinic at the same time. She claims the clinic doctor failed to check her chart before the procedure was done. If he had, she claims, he would have found she was scheduled for a routine pelvic examination and was not even pregnant at the time.
They sent this 18-year-old back into the operating room along with a nurse who was carrying the wrong medical chart. The clinic doctor failed to even look at the medical chart. He failed to do any of the tests or any of the necessary precautionary measures, and he simply began performing a vacuum aspiration abortion procedure on this 18-year-old. She was, of course, intensely in pain because there had been no sedatives or none of the normal preparation for an abortion administered to her. And we think that this atrocity that will affect this child for the remainder of her life is deservous of strong measures.
Officials of the Montgomery Women's Medical Clinic refused to comment when contacted about the $5.5 million suit.
Turn around. Amen. We still are going to be nonviolent. We still are going to fight for justice.
And move if we would achieve full citizenship. He would expect us to be about the business of acquiring for ourselves those things that he believed in and that he led us toward. He would like for us to be about completing the unfinished task of full citizenship for black people.
If I understand it correctly, when they opened a new jail, some 18 or 20 years ago, I understand it was overcrowded at that time. We are certainly trying to see that that doesn't happen here. So we have room to expand, and we hope we have ample space at this time when it's completed.
Her windows were up, and it appeared that he was trying to get into the car. At that time, I stopped, got out of my vehicle to find out what the problem was, and the white male pulled out a pistol, fired 3 times into the white female's vehicle, and turned and fired 1 time, shooting himself.
This station pumps millions of gallons of water a day out of the Tallapoosa River to be filtered and treated at the Clarence Perry Water Purification Plant. But about 7 Sunday morning, operators of the facility discovered a gray substance in the river water they were treating.
Immediately, the plant was shut down until we could determine what it was and what kind of effect it would have on the health and welfare of the people in Montgomery.
Why did you shut it down?
We have a comprehensive emergency plan, and this is part of an effect that we have on this. We're trained to react in this manner on any circumstances that we'd have like this.
Mr. Bryant says the city wasn't in any danger of a water shortage because the system has 2 wells in other parts of town. State environmentalists say the material in the river was a combination of carbon and burnt gravel and didn't pose any health problems. But where did it come from? State officials say from this sludge pond near the river, operated by Ohio Faro. Company officials say as best they can determine, the dike around the pond broke late Saturday night, and several million gallons of water flowed out into a creek and then into the river. Ohio Faro makes silicon material products, and Assistant Plant Manager Ken Leach says the material in the pond was basically ash cleaned out of the facility's smokestacks. The Alabama Department of Environmental Management is investigating the incident. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
First half action, North Carolina State in red. Sidney Lowe with the miss here, but Thurl Bailey gets the rebound in the slam. The Wolfpack led throughout most of the first half. Derek Wittenberg here from long range with the basket. Akeem Olajuwon kept the Cougars in it during the first half, there with the rebound slam. But North Carolina State led 33-25 at the half. Thurl Bailey with 15 points in the first half. Second half, Houston came out flying on the boards. Watch again for Akeem Olajuwon after the miss with the rebound and the jumper. And the Cougars jumped out in front by 7 points. Again, it's Olajuwon down the left side of the lane. He buries the jumper. But when North Carolina State appeared to be out of it, they came right back behind the long-range shooting of Derek Wittenberg. That made it 52-50. And then with under 2 minutes to go, again, it's Wittenberg from long range. He ties the game at 52. With 10 seconds to go in the game, North Carolina State with the ball. The game tied at 52. Derek Wittenberg will take the long-range shot. It is short, but Lorenzo Charles underneath with the slam. North Carolina State defeats Houston 54-52 for the NCAA title. Scott Clark for NBC News.
The Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Alabama.
And the Constitution of the State of Alabama.
So long as I continue a citizen thereof.
So long as I continue.
Hey, please let him stay. So he's the toughest, best hardball prosecutor we've ever had in this county.
I'm about to enter.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God. To me, and I just can't thank Judge Hooper enough, and Judge Emmett Snow. He has served as circuit judge for about 6 years, and he's a prize you might not want to be circuit judge, because you're going to be on a hot seat. And I'd just like to tell you, really, that was the first time I had met Governor Wallace personally.
The arraignment before Judge Myron Thompson didn't take long. Maddox pleaded not guilty, answered several procedural questions, and went back to the jail inside the federal courthouse. His wife and sister were at the arraignment today. His attorney, Jim Parkman of Dothan, says Maddox understands the charges against him. The indictment accuses Maddox of possessing drugs with intent to distribute them. He's been in custody since authorities arrested him last month after he made that emergency landing at the Dothan airport. There, authorities seized more than 600 pounds of cocaine valued at $150 million. Federal authorities escorted Maddox along with several other prisoners back to the Montgomery City Jail today. That's where he reportedly will stay unless he comes up with the $5 million bond. He hasn't managed to do so yet, and his attorney says he's probably going to file a motion asking that the bond be reduced. In the meantime, Maddox will wait in jail until his trial begins the week of May 23rd in Dothan. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News at the federal courthouse.
Quite a responsible job, and we have good people, and I just hope that we can over 500 employees in
Cattle over there. We just don't have any value-added facilities in this state. We're selling raw products. And the money isn't adding the value. That's what the commission referred to.
About 10% for the farm agricultural industry and 9% for the house.
Thank you. Agricultural chemistry and plant.
Humility.
Emphasize, and it's an area that it's really going to require hard work. He said he seems to complement the commission. I have certain personality traits, and Mr. Davis has others, and of course he and I had some pretty frank discussions.
South Old Lucas Drive. Resolution discussion on motion. All in favor, signify by
increase in compensation must be done 6 months.
Mr. Barry, members of council, you have questions concerning the application?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Reynolds?
Ms. Dewberry, I noticed on your
April 15, 1883. Members of council, ladies and gentlemen, you heard the reading of the resolution. It's brought before the council. Representative of Signify Epsilon Preston. Yes, sir.
My name is Matt Johnson.
The county school system has been running a $65,000 a month deficit since last fall, and the school board is currently negotiating for a $262,000 loan to keep the schools open. The schools were closed for a week in December to save some money. The Macon County Council of Governments has gone on record in favor of a dog track to bail out the financially ailing school system. Last night, Macon County constituents met with their state representative to set the wheels in motion. The chairman of the Macon County School Board says the time is right for a dog track referendum to pass in Macon County.
I certainly do. I think if the issue is presented again, we have a much better chance of passing it. The people are more aware of the issues and are more in a position to vote affirmative on that.
Representative Thomas Reed says either he or Senator Foy Covington will probably introduce a motion to suspend the rule that currently allows the entire House to vote on a parimutuel betting bill.
In the event that that rule is changed, it will be easily moved from the House of Representatives to the Senate, where there are no rules that are contrary to the old concept of local courtesy.
Macon County citizens could vote on the possibility of a dog track in their community in as early as 2.5 months. Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
Thank you.
Suspend rules to consider resolution this time. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. So please be recognized. So take the money from one project that's already planned for them. Now y'all gonna be there for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the reading of the resolution. It's brought before the council as a representative from Talk Capital. I can't remember what it was about.
Let us look at it from an engineering standpoint and take the money from the part that would be the furthest downstream.
Right, okay. I don't have a problem with that. Living from
The former Florida governor told reporters he's not in Alabama to begin concentrated efforts to organize for his presidential bid, but rather is here for a speech and to meet with other Democrats to get ideas of what kind of support he can expect from them when the campaign moves into high gear. Mr. Askew says the main issue during the campaign will again be the economy. Mr. Askew says his goal, if elected, is to bring jobs, profit, and peace to the American people. Another of his goals is to reduce the federal deficit. This, he says, can be done by repealing some of the tax cuts enacted by the Reagan administration and a cut in defense spending.
Because as long as those deficits remain high, we're going to have some instability on the long-term lending market. And if that continues, you're not really going to have real interest rates come down much. Without them coming down, you're not going to have a sustained recovery. So they become a question. That's why I believe that the President ought to give serious consideration to going ahead and either repealing or modifying the third year of the tax cuts and putting the index provision on hold.
Mr. Askew says he'll try to visit with Governor Wallace if he's allowed to have visitors at University Hospital. Matt Carmack, WSFA TV News at the state capitol.
But not...
Don't turn around, Joe. Walk backwards. Okay.
Jerry, we got to go this way, right? Where y'all parked at? We're out back. You want to take up front? We got to get put him in our car. Yeah. All right.
Reporting directly to the Chief of the Air Force. It has a significant impact in a number of ways. What the President's legal authority is there on days. And the Congress it has a significant impact in a number of ways. It's more prestigious first. Its permanency is ensured thereby. It will also ultimately mean more people at Maxwell, and it's just a better situation all around.
For the past several years, Maxwell Air Force Base's Air University has been under the wing of the Air Training Command in Randolph, Texas. But that's about to change.
As of 1 July this year, Maxwell will be designated a major command of the United States Air Force.
Congressman Bill Dickinson says he and others interested in the Air Force academic community work for the change, which puts the base back on equal footing with other major commands like the Strategic Air Command.
It has a significant impact in a number of ways. It's more prestigious first. Its permanency is ensured thereby. It will also ultimately mean more people at Maxwell.
Congressman Dickinson says part of the base's future security can be seen through construction programs at the base. Construction, the congressman predicts, will near $150 million by the year 1989. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Working for yourself and working for someone. From now on, the head of folded it in under Air Training Commands is not met. The committee is not met with us, with our neighbors, because that's a long-term strategy that the Marxists have enunciated. They've printed. It's very significant. It's sort of it has a significant impact in a number of ways. It's more prestigious first. Its permanency is ensured thereby. It will also ultimately mean more people at Maxwell, and it's just a better situation all around.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Alabama.
And the Constitution of the State of Alabama.
So long as I continue a citizen thereof.
So long as I continue a citizen thereof.
And that I will faithfully and honestly.
And that I will faithfully and honestly.
Discharge the duties of the office.
Discharge the duties of the office.
Upon which I am about to enter.
Upon which I am about to enter.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Liaison person for special contribution to improving the lives of disabled persons. You will ask people for time, and now it is not free, but remember, I don't get paid anything. I just do that.
I'm just the president.
Before I make this presentation, I want to commend you for the great improvement in your behavior in the conduct of this county.
The former Florida governor told reporters he's not in Alabama to begin concentrated efforts to organize for his presidential bid, but rather is here for a speech and to meet with other Democrats to get ideas of what kind of support he can expect from them when the campaign moves into high gear. Mr. Askew says the main issue during the campaign will again be the economy. Mr. Askew says his goal, if elected, is to bring jobs, profit, and peace to the American people. Another of his goals is to reduce the federal deficit. This, he says, can be done by repealing some of the tax cuts enacted by the Reagan administration and a cut in defense spending.
So immediately what we're looking at, we're reducing some of the projected increases in defense spending, making some changes in the projected tax provisions to keep from losing so much more revenue. And with that, I think you might then have the credibility to deal with some of the other spending in the other areas of government. But you can't keep saying you're going to reduce so much spending from government if you're only talking about addressing yourself in one little small segment of the spending.
Mr. Askew says he'll try to visit with Governor Wallace if he's allowed to have visitors at University Hospital.
What this is another release of convicts from the penitentiary.
Mr. Evans says a restitution program is a good idea, but he says what's happening in Montgomery County and proposed for the rest of the state is a sham, a lie, and a fraud.
What they're doing, they're saying, look, if you promise us that you'll go home and be good, then we're going to let you out of the penitentiary. That is the sum total of this program. And if this is it, I think the whole thing violates the intent of the legislature. They're using a statute called pre-discretionary leave, which was designed to let a prisoner out within so many months of his sentence to get a job, to return to society. pre-discretionary leave was never intended for the mass release of prisoners, and that's exactly what's happening.
Mr. Evans says most of the 22 inmates already out and working on the highway or at jobs in the private sector have 6 to 7 felonies charged against them. And he questions the Board of Corrections' ability to collect restitution when they haven't been able to in the past. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
It's not a restitution program, it's a release program. I don't know if you know much about Board of Corrections' history of collecting restitution, but they have the most dismal record of any agency in Alabama. We've had a restitution law that required prisoners who have income while incarcerated to pay restitution. We have, it's been in effect for the past 2 years. If they can't collect restitution from people who are within the penitentiary, how in the world they're going to collect it from folks that are outside the penitentiary? So this is not a restitution program. That's sort of a misnomer, and it's a misleading statement. What this is another release of convicts from the penitentiary.
Never go to bed a loser.
And George Halas never did. He was a winner from the start at Crane Tech, Illinois, the U.S. Navy, and in Decatur, where with the A.E. Staley Company, the Papa Bear founded the forerunner of the Chicago Bears. In 1921, Halas and a group of men founded a league. He dubbed it out of loyalty to the Cubs, the National Football League. Then in 1925 came the move to the big time, when Halas signed college football's greatest star, Red Grange from Illinois. Grange made his debut on Thanksgiving Day against the Southside Chicago Cardinals. A jammed Wrigley Field crowd saw a scoreless tie in bitter cold and the beginning of big-time football.
He was such a nationally known figure, known from coast to coast. And he was to the Bears at that time what television is to us now.
Gale Sayers, magic in motion. Teammates admired and respected him because he is always razor sharp physically. If you wish to see perfection at running back, you had best get a hold of a film of Gale Sayers. His like will never be seen again. I proudly present for induction into the Hall of Fame, Gale Sayers. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, you can't move it, Tom. I don't think you move it. No, this bus is dead. Fan hitting the radiator.
It may be several weeks before you see twin trailer trucks on Alabama highways. And if the Alabama Safety Council has its way, the highways where they will be allowed will be drastically cut from the federal list. Safety Council spokesman Frank Thimonge says they will try to get legislation passed to restrict the rigs to interstate highways. The federal list includes, among others, US 82 from Mississippi to Georgia, US 80 from Mississippi to I-85, and US 280 from Columbus to Birmingham. Jim Ritchie of the Alabama Trucking Association says he expects many truckers will take advantage of the new federal law allowing them to cross Alabama with the twin trailers. Most of the drivers we talk with say they don't particularly want to drive the double rigs. They say they're more dangerous than the single load. They're harder to handle once in city traffic and inconvenient, since once they've reached their destination, they have to drop half the trailer, deliver it, come back and pick up the other half. If drivers do plan to use the twin rigs in the state, Trucking Association spokesmen say they had better have plenty of gas before they enter Alabama, because they will not be allowed to leave the interstate routes or specially designated highways. Matt Carmack, WSFA TV News.
Well, it is. It's something we've been working for 5 years, but we've got lots of others that we've got to get out.
For 5 years, Jane Drake has been trying to pressure the Soviet government to let the Vishenko family emigrate. Since 1978, the Vishenkos and some of their children have lived a prisoner-like existence in the American embassy. But now that daughter Lydia is out, Ms. Drake doesn't know why the Soviets finally relented.
No one really knows. The State Department doesn't know. No one knows why the Soviets have done this. Only the Politburo knows.
Lydia and her family wanted to leave Russia for religious reasons.
Lydia was one of the daughters that was taken away from the family when she was just a young child. She spent 6 to 8 years in a home for re-education in the doctrine of atheism. So she started suffering as a tiny child.
Ms. Drake says the next few days will be critical. Where Lydia decides to settle may have a bearing on the rest of the family's chances for immigration.
And they're determined that they are going to leave the Soviet Union. And by George, she has won. She's left.
Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Troopers from 30 states, including Alabama, will meet to discuss an 11-point public safety plan adopted by the coalition earlier this year. That plan includes recommendations to establish a death penalty in every state and shorten the appeals process in cases involving the death penalty, use federal land for state prison construction, and start a federally funded training program for state and local police while creating uniform training standards. But these are not new ideas. What makes the coalition leaders like Thomas Isricki think they can get them introduced and approved in Congress?
The timing. Like you said, this has been bandied around for the last several years, but now the cry for public safety is a primary concern for everybody in the country. I feel a new blood, and we have roughly 36,000 troopers, which we represent in the coalition. The clout and the impact throughout the country is going to bring Congress and the United States Senate to listen to our cry, which has been carried on for 4 or 5 years by various organizations.
Mr. Isricki says it may take 3 or 4 years to get the troopers' ideas through Congress, but if they are approved, coalition leaders think they'll considerably dampen enthusiasm for breaking the law. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. The Troopers Coalition thinks the timing is right and the mood of Congress is favorable for their proposed changes in the law.
I think as Reagan, as he finishes in half of his tour, goes into the second tour as President of the United States, we see him start to come around.
The troopers want to see changes like lowering the age of adulthood to 16 for violations of the criminal code, raising the legal drinking age to 21, stiffening the penalties for carrying concealed weapons, and adopting a guilty but insane plea in the courts.
We have the potential now to deliver our goals. We will accomplish these goals. I'd love to see them in 3 to 5 years.
Coalition leaders admit getting Congress to back their proposals won't be easy, but they say support for their group has been steadily growing since it was organized a few years ago, and they won't let it fail now. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Service to locate missing, runaway, and kidnapped children throughout the United States. Okay? The first phase of our plan is to put together 26 different regions throughout the United States. Alabama and Mississippi are combined to make one region. Of these 26 regions, each area will have a regional director and then field reps, investigators, if you so to speak, within that area. Bucks, and we'll keep them on our list. So what would happen if I was in Montgomery and happened to go by the police department or someplace and see the picture of that child, John, and saw somebody that resembled him in Montgomery, I could call Child Find, and they There are organized gangs that'll get together with you and your wife if you happen to want children, but one of you cannot have them. You can't go to the adoption agencies because of problems. And for $20,000 or $30,000, they will go find you a child. Snatch them off the street from some area, come back and say, here, you're now a parent. Take my $30,000 and they're gone.
By the time these 10th graders are seniors in 1985, they will have taken the new state high school graduation examination. But in order for them to receive their diploma, they must pass the test.
The students knew the exam was coming. Last year, they received a brochure of the new test explaining what it is and the areas to be tested. State school board officials hope the new exam will motivate the students to learn the basic competency skills, because they won't graduate unless the new exam proves they can read, write, and work math problems.
Beginning next school term in October, all sophomores will take the exam. If they fail the first time, they get 4 more chances.
If he passes it all, he's through with the test. If he passes any section, he's through with that section. But if he should fail one section of the test, then he must be retaught the skills by the school system, and he will have another opportunity to take that section in the spring of his 11th grade. If he goes on to the 12th grade and he still has failed one of the sections, he has another opportunity in the fall of his 12th grade and in the spring of his 12th grade.
School officials stress that the exam is basically a literacy test, a test they say that wasn't devised to deny seniors their diploma, but to make sure they deserve one. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
And work hard.
These sophomores know they'll be the first class to take the new state high school graduation exam. They also know they won't receive their diploma unless they pass it. But the students say they're not worried and say taking the new exam is good for them.
When they graduate, they need to be able to read and write well enough so that they can function in a job and function in today's society.
If a student gets out of high school and he can't read or write or work math problems, he won't be able to find a job, and it'll just be another burden on society.
Really, someone should be able to pass it in just one time of trying. So it's really, I'm not really worried about it since I have 4 times to try.
All sophomores will take the test beginning October 11th through the 13th. They only get 1 chance to take it that day, but they get 4 chances to take it if they failed the first time. State school board officials hope the new test will motivate the students to learn the basic competency skills in reading, writing, and math. So by the time these sophomores or seniors, they will have taken the test, which should prove if they pass it, they're ready to graduate. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
ML, at this time, those trailers will stay there. In the beginning, what you're receiving is just a list of 700-800 truckloads of dirt, something of that nature, and getting it done immediately without having to wait for court action on my call. And the basic is reporting and giving us what assistance they possibly can to get this worked out.
For 5 years, the telephone has been Jane Drake's main link to the Vishenko family in Moscow. Now, unexpectedly, one of the Vishenko daughters has been allowed to leave Russia, and the calls are going to Vienna.
Really, it's a culmination of 5 years of work. It's not any one incident ever. No one really knows. The State Department doesn't know. No one knows why the Soviets have done this. Only the Politburo knows.
Lydia was with her mother and father in 1978 when they first sought refuge at the American Embassy in Moscow. She had to leave the embassy last year, but her parents and 2 sisters are still living in the embassy basement. Vishenkos are fundamentalist Christians who seek religious freedom.
Lydia has really suffered, and she knows what it is to not have freedom of religion. These people are very, very strong, and they're determined that they are going to leave the Soviet Union. And by George, she has won. She's left.
Ms. Drake may be going to Vienna to help Lydia decide where to live. Ms. Drake thinks the entire Vishenko family might be better off if Lydia were to follow her government papers and settle in West Germany or Israel. But she emphasizes that Lydia is free now and can go where she likes. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
This was not the scene in Tuscaloosa today. You're actually watching Alabama on opening day of spring football 2 weeks ago. Heavy rains washed out the Crimson Tide practice session this afternoon. It was to be their 9th of a maximum 20 allowed by the NCAA. Despite today's rain out, spring training appears to be on target at the capstone. At the virtual halfway point, new head coach Ray Perkins gave us this progress report.
Well, I'm pretty pleased, Rick, with the way it's gone so far. We've only had one scrimmage, and we had some good things, and we had some not so good things. You know, from an overall standpoint, we were pretty pleased with it. We felt like the defense would be ahead of the offense. Offense made a lot of mistakes that we kind of expected out of a first scrimmage, but we had quite a few kids that improved to a point where I'm not sure that I even realized they would to that point. You know, we're asking some of them to do some things that are a little bit foreign to them, like lineman, drop back pass protection. I'm not sure how much they've been exposed to that since they've been here, but from an overall standpoint, I have to say I'm pretty pleased. But I know that we can do things better, and I'll definitely expect better things the next time we go out to scrimmage.
Perkins is attempting to install a brand new offense and replace 7 graduated starters on defense this spring. We'll talk with some of the principals involved and address some of the particulars on tomorrow's news. Rick Ponds, WSFA TV Sports in rainy Tuscaloosa.